Heroic dungeons not available on Dungeon Finder until Season 1 starts in the War Within. Wow. Okay, this is a big deal. So we talked about this. So, by the way, for people who are maybe misunderstanding too, Heroic dungeons are the new Mythic Zero. But also, what the are we doing here? Why? Mythic Zero was always available in the first part of the expansion. There's like nothing to fucking do without Mythic Zero. This says only in the Dungeon Finder. Oh, okay. So it's exactly the same. So it's exactly this. You can still make groups. You can still zone in to Heroic of these dungeons. It's going to be the exact same as it was. Okay, actually, not only is this not a big deal, but I think this is actually smart. So what you'll notice, guys, in World of Warcraft, you can make all the announcements in the world, but it turns out people don't read anything. I'll give an example. They released Augmentation Evoker halfway through Season 2. I know I just said that, and half of you heard the word augmentation and went like, oh, you like got the shivers. Boo, idiot. Get scared. All right, but they came out with Aug in the middle of Season 2, and there were so many screenshots in the first week or two of people getting kicked from their groups playing Aug because some group leader didn't pay attention to any of the patch information and just saw Aug Evokers doing like 0 DPS and were like, what the f is this dumbass spec? And then kicked them out of the group because they didn't know any better, right? No matter how much it is talked about, which it was talked about ad nauseum before it actually came out, like people just aren't going to know until they're used to it. Ever. Same thing happened in the beginning of Season 4. In Season 4, we got the new dungeon format, which was Mythic Zeros are now Heroic dungeons, and old Mythic Zeros are now new Heroic dungeons, and old Mythic 10s are now Mythic Zeros. And people were doing Mythic Zeros when the patch came out and getting slaughtered, right? People who normally only do +2s to +10s were starting the new season, zoning into a +8, not realizing they were doing a +18, and were getting slaughtered, right? And that was, you know, it's just not surprising if you've been around for a while because people just, no matter how much it's talked about, there's just a lot of people that don't pay attention to that shit and they just log in and play the game, which is totally fine, by the way, but that's just what it is, right? If they didn't do this, and people who've been playing WoW for a long time and are not Twitch frogs, they're not YouTube frogs, they just log in for WoW to have fun, and the first thing they do when they hit max level, and just like they've done since Cataclysm, is they just zone into some Heroic dungeons and get gear. Since like the beginning of WoW, not even Cata, right? Can you imagine if you could just queue for Heroic like you've done for the last couple years, how fucking mad people would be if they queued for a Heroic and it was a Mythic Zero and they're not used for that level of content and they would just get slaughtered? It'd be the same thing over and over again. The content isn't actually reduced for you, but by making people make a group to go to Mythic Zero like you have been doing for multiple expansions, and there's nothing wrong with that, it will at least be like, oh, that's different. Why is that different? And then someone in their Discord or guild chat will be like, yeah, they made Heroics actually make sense and have any difficulty whatsoever to them for the first time in a while. They're not, it's giving you better rewards as well, keep in mind. It's not just like they made Heroic harder for no reason. Before, like, Heroics didn't make sense in the old dungeon format. You hit max level, you did normal dungeons to level, and then Heroic dungeons you immediately skipped for like rare gear and Mythic Zero gear. Like you just didn't even do Heroics. So I think this is not only a good idea, I think this is good for the game. As long as it is confirmed that Heroic dungeons will be able to be walked into. If they're unable to be walked into, then I have a massive problem with this, and I think that's a huge mistake. But as long as they have the same Mythic Zero lockout they've had in previous expansions, I think that makes a ton of sense. It also means no endless farm for the first week. Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't be able to just go in and just spam Mythic Zeros. There's no point to do that. I actually like the lockout. Bro, do you remember how much fun people had? Like fucking... I actually think that was one of Dragonflight's biggest successes, and it's such a random point in time, but how crazy people were going farming rares at the beginning of Dragonflight. They did like their Mythic Zeros, and they just farmed rares every day to get like random drops a little bit higher. None of that gear mattered. Everyone knew none of that gear mattered, and everyone was still fucking just like fucking fiending for that shit, right? Farming dirt, bro. People were digging dirt. It's because there was nothing to do, so they were bored. Bro, if there was nothing to do and you were bored, you would have logged off. None of that stuff mattered. You didn't need any of it for the season. You would have just done something else. It's fun. Everyone's like running around doing it at one time. Big packs of people going to a new thing, man. Farming shit in MMOs are synonymous. And it was just like fucking, oh, so it was, I don't know why it was so fun, but it was just fun, you know? What would be the lockout for Heroic? The same thing as Mythic Zero. So what Mythic Zero was like before was like every week for the first 2 weeks, you would do each of the Mythic Dungeons, Mythic Zeros once on each character to get gear. That's all you did. And now this is going to, as far as I know, this is going to be exactly the same. Heroic Dungeons are daily lockout, though. I kind of hope it's weekly lockout. I wouldn't want it to be daily lockout. Like, I know a lot of you guys are like, just give me everything right away, but like, dude, if you're making like, a lot of people make like 2 or 3 characters in the first like couple weeks. Like, dude, having to do a full Heroic clear every single day on each one of those characters sounds like fucking insane. Keep in mind, Heroics are just like old Mythic Zeros. That would take like fucking forever. It is weekly? Yeah, I mean, I hope it's weekly. What is it? Max, I don't know if you talked about it, but the description says not available in Dungeon Finder. This could mean they will be available if you just walk to the dungeon like for Mythic Plus. That's what we've been talking about for the past 10 minutes, yeah. Keep in mind, most people will only play one character in the beginning. Even if most players are still playing one character, I think a weekly lockout for Heroic Dungeons in the new expansion is better than daily. Dude, guys, how long do you think a Mythic Zero clear was on average at the beginning of Dragonflight? 2.5, 3 hours, including travel time to each dungeon? If you're not with a really good group? This is a long fucking time. Probably that was like few hours. No shot? An hour? Guys, let's, you don't have to say shit like that. Like when I would do it with like a tank in our guild, like Ben, we would do runs in like an hour and 50 minutes or something. Guys, we're talking every single dungeon. It takes like, I would say most groups take 2 to 3 hours. We could do them sub 2, but like, it could even be longer than 3, bro. Like, it was a long time. There's ain't no fucking way you guys want to do that every single day. That is ass. That is a weekly cap thing for sure is the best thing to do. You're saying the whole tour. I'm saying every single Mythic Zero. Yeah. Yeah, if any of you guys in chat just said that shit did it in an hour, you are fucking capping. That is hard cap. Yeah, each dungeon's probably around 15, 20 minutes with no gear like that. And there's also the time to fly in between 2 dungeons. Yeah. Waiting for that one person to get there to accept their summon after they take a break every time. You guys know that feel. Yeah, so I would say my final thought on this is good, and I hope they are weekly lockout. That would, I think exactly how Mythic Zeros have interacted with the beginning of the last 2 expansions is exactly how it should be. If it's daily, I think that's going to be so unbelievably ass. What is it? Absolutely not. Just let me queue. Guys, I think if you... The PTSD-inducing horrors that you would experience queuing for Mythic Zeros with randoms in week 1 would be... You'd see images of that as you were dying 60 years later. Like, it would never leave your mind. You would see just endless slaughter and 8-hour dungeon clears, like full clears. It would be insane. You do not want to do that. These are not old heroics, man. The content would be incredible if content you enjoy is pain and suffering. Max, have you seen the crest changes? I do want you guys to know, though, that I don't really know a lot about crests. So when we are like setting up for a race, there are things that are delegated. And there's one thing that I want nothing to do with: loot. You want to know why? Because I just want a mythic raid. If I'm in charge of loot, I'll cut our splits early. If I'm in charge of loot, I'll just say, guys, let's just go fucking raid, bro. I am not allowed to do loot. I have banned myself from loot. I don't even want to know what loot does. We are not allowed to go into the mythic raid until Bubba says that we have all the loot we could possibly get. I am locked in a closet until we are done looting, because all I want to do is just go fucking raid. So I don't know shit about this, but let's see. In the War Within beta, upgrade crests now require higher level keystones to be completed, with the highest level of crest dropping from 9s and above. Okay, so where did you previously get the highest level of crest? Wasn't it 17s? 16s? Or now it would be 6s? Yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting it went down. Yeah, actually, I don't... Okay, so there's a lot to be said about proper game design and, like, having the content actually award you with stuff that makes sense for that difficulty level. Like, for example, as a game designer, getting aspect crests from +2s probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Getting aspect crests from running normal dungeons. Let's do the most extreme argument here, where, like, farming random mobs in a zone gives you aspect crests, right? Like, there needs to be some semblance of difficulty equals good reward. But I think they're making a mistake here, because crests are really grindy to begin with, and they already had it at +6s, so now it's just going to feel like a nerf. Like, for example, if the only way to get aspect crests last 2 patches was by doing 19s in Season 3 or doing 9s in Season 4, you wouldn't be fucking going crazy if that remained the case in the expansion. But the fact that it was a 6 and now it's going to a 9... All right, yeah, okay, you can say nice, by the way. Just go ahead and get it out of the way. I know you guys hear those two numbers and you're just going fucking wild, but I think people are just going to be mad because it's nerfed, you know? And there's another part of it, too. There's still... So I think overall, crests have been a W. The new upgrade system, I think, is way better than old gearing in this game, for sure. That being said, there is still a huge point of friction with crests. Throughout a patch, it is still unbelievably dog shit to play other characters. Like, the game is supposed to be more alt-friendly, and it kind of is, but, like, the amount of... If you want to decide to play your alt in Week 4, Week 5, Week 6, the amount of 16s you used to... Or 6s you used to have to do was a fucking ton to get caught up, and it was realistically the only way to farm aspect crests. And now having to do that is just going to take longer, right? Like, there needs to clearly be some kind of, like, hey, if your main is 3 eye levels from max or something, when you start playing alts, your upgrade costs should be reduced by like 30 or 40% until you get to the eye level that your main is at. Like, your main unlocks a threshold to where it like reduces upgrades for your alt, so that, and maybe Warbound stuff will make it do that, but like when I read something like this, I'm just thinking of how unplayable alts feel to me now, at least if you don't start them right away. Because, like, at a certain point, you're staring down the barrel of spending days of spamming easy content just to get gear to do real content. You're staring down the barrel of 100 fucking Mythic Plus dungeons, right? It just seems like it's going to be more unobtainable for me to do this. So, yeah, this will make alts unplayable. Well, it depends. By the way, I want to point out that I play the game a very specific way. Like, for me, doing easy content is not... like fun for me. Like, I want to do content where I'm doing like the highest level keys that I should be able to do as a character. If I'm like playing a really undergeared character, that's not fun for me. I understand for some people that watch the stream, and just a lot of people who play WoW, it's not lost on me that like if you start playing a new alt, you can spend some time learning the character, doing lower keys, moving to higher keys, and there's like this sense of progression, and that like you love that, and you feel like our alts aren't a problem at all, and I totally understand. For me, I'm not learning the character. I know the character. I'm like, wow, I really want to play this thing. But like, for me to do content that I find enjoyable, I would have to do a ridiculous amount of hours of very easy, monotonous, boring content, kind of similar to like Lost Ark, like spamming Chaos Dungeons and Guardian raids, like just awful content, repeatable, boring content, chores, right? Just to be able to play the character. And usually that mountain of extremely unfun chores make me not log into the character at all. And I think there should be something in the game to make that easier to do once you've already done it. I just think everything in this game, it's not novel when you do it the second time. If you level a character in WoW, right? Let's say it takes 12 hours to level a character. Bro, the next time you level a character, you're not going to spend that whole time being like, wow, leveling is cool. You've already done it. Like, you want that second clear to be significantly faster, right? It's the same thing with gearing, man. If I've gone from 460 to 485 in a patch on my main, my alt should just simply do that faster than my main did. And maybe with the warband system, they have some shit cooking where that will make sense. I just feel like that was a huge miss in the last 2 seasons of WoW, where it just takes too long to play those characters. So, yeah, exactly. Mop Remix did this exactly right. Now, Mop Remix, as far as I could tell from a lot of you guys, also made a bunch of other mistakes. But, like, one thing is, after you level your first character, your second characters are flying through leveling, right? Like, I think they should apply that to, like, pretty much everything. Max, this is probably to slow the world first race. I think this has absolutely nothing to do with that. There's no chance. I don't think they... First of all, that isn't even true. That wouldn't do that. And second, I don't think that enters their mind when they make any changes involving the game and looting and gearing and stuff at all. The only thing I think they do for the Race to World First is the bosses that they know the Race to World First will only be at and no one else will. Stuff like Tendril and Fyrak in the first week. I think they tuned those bosses specifically for our couple of guilds. And there's issues with that, too. You could definitely... I'm right with you. Like... If you don't nerf them fast enough and having to nerf them that much and all that stuff. Well, actually, I don't even know if that's true. Because, like, Whatever. I'll meet you there. But as far as like gearing and stuff, it's literally nothing. They don't do anything like that. The only thing I'm weird with Tindral and Firac is like for a while I thought they were a casualty of the Race to World First. Like they're just having the delta between the average Mythic guild and how good our guilds have gotten is so much that like these end bosses are problematic. But like I wonder if this was just a raid where they had two really hard end bosses. Like that's happened before. Before the Race to World First was popular or streamed, or you would ever make the argument they were making the game for the 1% or whatever, in Legion, they made Fallen Avatar and Kill Jaden back-to-back. That is, like, the exact same thing as Tindral and Firac. Like, 6 years ago, or whenever that... When was Legion out? 8 years ago? Holy fuck. Yeah, 8 years ago in Legion, that, like, those bosses then were just as hard as Tindral and Firac are now. Like, obviously... Fallen Avatar and Kill Jaden would get smoked today's players, but like for how it was at the time, it was the same thing. It had nothing to do with the like. Sometimes they just make really hard bosses back to back. I don't know if it has too much to do with anything else.